Hey everybody, Papa Wiggs here with Wiggs. We're going to talk about our week 4 start sits. We're going to jump into the starts right now. So I know this one is obvious, and this is probably, you shouldn't be told this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Brock Bowers for the Raiders. He's a number one tight end for fantasy points, I think, right now. You've got to start him regardless. This is, I usually don't like putting somebody on here, but he is a rookie, so I stuck him on here. I think his matchup this week against the Browns is a perfect matchup where I think he could go for easily over 100 yards and a touchdown on 6 to 8 receptions. My next guy on here is Chuba Hubbard. He's been a little bit of a surprise to me this year. I mean, I know Wiggs, you know, doesn't think he's a surprise, but
Oh no, I do. He had his best week against me last week.
oh yeah. But anyways, they're going up against the Bengals defense. They're not that great. They haven't been looking that great. I really think Hubbard could, get, another 100-yard game here if they call it right with a possible touchdown. So that's why I stuck him here. Zach Moss for the Bengals. I'm still not sold on the Panthers defense. I think that Zach Moss can definitely have a good game against them. I think he could have a combined 100 yards between rushing and receiving in this game. So I definitely think he's worth starting this week. Rashid Shaheed, boy, say that 10 times, Wiggs. For the Saints, listen, I like. I'm really surprised actually how well he's doing this year. I think he's going to have a big game against the Falcons. I really do. I think they're going to be focusing on Olave. I think I think Wiggs had said this in one of our earlier videos that Carr seems to have a really good chemistry with Shaheed. So, and I agree with Wiggs there. I think he's going to go for, he could go for at least 100 yards on, like 7, 8 receptions, and I definitely think he could break one off for a touchdown. And my last guy, and I've been really critical of this guy all year, but I put him on here, George Pickens. I think it's time. I definitely think it's time. I think Fields needs to, take some shots downfield. Who do they play? Oh, they play the Colts. Sorry, I couldn't see their thing. They play the Colts this week. They're on the road. I think Fields needs. I think Fields is going to start building that rapport with Pickens, just like he did with Moore in Chicago last year. I think this is going to be a really good game for Pickens. I really do. I think that he could have 80 to 100 yards and a touchdown on about 5 to 7 receptions.
Yeah, moving on into mine, I took Tajay Spears right away here. For me, I just have a really good feeling here that this week is going to be a week where I think he's going to break off and at least contest Pollard for more reps here in this offense. He hasn't been utilized a whole lot yet to this point in the year, which is a little sad because I thought him and Pollard would be more of an even split. But I think this will be the week where they finally give him the ball a little bit more. I think they're going to run it quite a bit more here this week because Levy's is turning the ball over quite a bit. So I think they need to rely more on their running backs from a running standpoint and a passing standpoint. I think they need to simplify the offense here for Levy's because he is making stupid mistake after stupid mistake here in the first 3 weeks. And I think you need to limit that. So I think getting your running backs more involved, especially someone like Spears, will benefit the team as a whole. And I think this week might be the week where they maybe start to utilize Spears a little bit more. So at a flex spot, I honestly would take the chance with Spears this week because I think he's going to be a solid option here going into the matchup against the Dolphins, and it wouldn't surprise me if he popped off. Now I know the Dolphins, I believe, are going to have Huntley starting this week, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see if it'll be a back and forth offensive battle. If it's not, and the Titans get ahead, then they're going to run the ball quite a bit. So we'll see what Spears does. Next up, and I think this might be the hottest take I have here on my list, Roschon Johnson. This Bears offense to me is not impressive whatsoever right now, but I think Johnson's actually going to be involved quite a bit more here than Swift in this week. They've come out and said he's going to be getting a lot more reps, and you were sold on him last year. I think he's a good option going into this week. It's a stretch, definitely a stretch here to start, but I could see him going for another what 60 plus yards, and I could totally see him getting a touchdown here in this game. Um, I think someone like Caleb Williams needs to utilize his running backs a little bit more as well. And I hope he does because Rashawn Johnson is a beast when it comes to the receiving game. So if they get the ball in his hands and receiving plays, like I think he has all the potential in the world to pop off for like a 40-yard touchdown receiving the ball because he's got quite a bit of speed behind him
I
too.
don't disagree with you. I like him. I think he's more of a sleeper myself, but I can see why you start him uh, and stuff. I know that he came off of a good week, and I am high on him. I'm really surprised that they're doing that. I just don't know that they're willing to eat the money that they paid Swift
Yeah, and
to give the ball to Johnson more.
I think a lot of it's going to come down to whether or not he scores a touchdown. I think it's going to be one of those starts where it's touchdown dependent. I could totally see that happening here in this game because they've really been utilizing Johnson and Herbert a lot more in receiving plays, and their run game's really not doing a whole lot right now. So I could totally see them mixing Johnson in there a little bit more to see if some sort of change of pace could help them in that run.
I hope you're right because I do think that they didn't use him like they should have last year,
Yeah.
and I definitely think that he was a hot rookie last year that was misused.
Yep.
So hopefully they'll figure out how to get him in there because he's explosive.
Yeah, he's a beast. Moving on, we have Terry McLaurin here. I think last week just goes to show here that McLaurin is is a good receiver. Like he's in my eyes a top 15 guy. He had a few slow weeks there between him and Daniels, but Daniels looked his way a lot in that last game. And like I was telling you, Daniels missed him on a 54-yard touchdown that he could have had. Daniels was getting pressured, so the ball came out a little earlier than he wanted. But McLaurin could have had 3 touchdowns in this game. He ended up 4 yards short on another catch. He ended up getting a touchdown later in the quarter. Like McLaurin and Daniels are going to have a really good connection, and I think McLaurin is one of those must start guys. I think he should be started every week from this point on, personally, but I threw this in here because he hasn't really done anything outside of last week. But I think now that Daniels is more comfortable in the offense, that him and McLaurin are gonna have a really great year.
Well, he's starting for me.
And then Demarcus Robinson again. I know this is back to back weeks, but someone in this offense has to perform at wide receiver. You can't just rely on Kyron Williams like they did last week. Of the receivers they have, I think it's going to be Demarcus Robinson. I just think he's the most talented of the three, even at his old age. Nothing against Tyler Johnson or Atwell, but I think his IQ of the game and his ability to catch the ball is just going to separate him a little bit from those guys. It's not. I'm not saying like those other two won't do anything, but I think Stafford's going to have to get the ball into his hands, or at least in Atwell's hands, for them to have success here this week. I think they got lucky last week with their win. I give all the credit really to Kyron. Yeah, other than that, it was kind of a mediocre week there. And then again, I'm going back to back weeks here with T. Higgins as well. It's probably a hot take just because he's still getting into the flow of things, but I like T. Higgins there at the wide receiver too. And now that Chase had a good game, I think teams might give Chase a little more attention, which I think will just open up Higgins a little bit more. And I think Higgins is going to have a pretty solid week here against the Panthers. And the Panthers
I saw something
great,
about Chase was dealing with some kind of issue too.
Well, if he is, that just opens it up a little more for Higgins. So we'll see.
This is the week that Higgins should be able to pop off. I mean, the Panthers' defense, at least to me, still needs to prove, where they stand now that they got, supposedly their guy at quarterback and Dalton. So this defense has got to step up, and this is going to be a challenge for them.
Moving on to our sits.
Yeah, so my sits this week, I like Cortland Sutton. I think he's a good receiver. I just don't think he's going to have a good week against this Jets defense. I'm positive Sauce Gardner's gonna probably be guarding him a lot. I'm not convinced that he's gonna be, a big part of this, of the offense this week because I think he's going to be taken out by Gardner in those corners of the Jets. That's just my opinion. I think that they're going to end up having to, use screens and use some of their other wide receivers in this game because I think he's going to be definitely targeted by that Jets defense. And then Michael Pittman, listen, he's going up. They're going up against a tough Steelers defense. I just don't feel like he's going to have a big game this week. I think the Steelers defense is going to really cause Richardson to pull the ball down and run a lot. Richardson's still in his second year, has a tendency to do that. I think he isn't learning um, how to just maybe get out of the pocket and throw the ball. So I'm not very confident with Pittman starting. I know a lot of people out there might be relying on Pittman as one of your starting receivers, but to me, if you've got a better option to use over Pittman, I would use him because I think he's going to have a difficult week this week. DeAndre Swift, they're going up against LA. The Rams defense has actually been playing a little bit surprising to me this year. They've actually looked pretty good. I think Swift is struggling, and I agree with Wiggs. I think that the Bears are going to end up probably using a little bit more of Johnson and Herbert in this one. And so it's going to be difficult to see where Swift goes. And I think he's going to find it difficult to get the yards that he needs to have an effective day. Uh, so that's why I got Swift on here. Then Christian Watson, the Packers, they're playing the Vikings this week. Um, listen, Love's practicing, but they still haven't said if he's going to play or not. He says he's going to play, um, but he's not 100%. I don't know if he's going to play. What the player says and what the coaching staff ends up doing are two different things. So I'm just not confident um, that Love's going to be out there. I think with Malik Willis out there, I think Malik is. I personally think the Packers are going to try to come in here and they're going to try to give a heavy dose of Jacobs. And they're going to use their passing game just to get them out of trouble, especially if Willis is playing. And I think Watson hasn't proven that he hasn't done anything this year really. So I think Jalen Reed has been and you got Dobbs and I also think that they're going to use Kraft and Musgrave and those guys a little bit more in this game because they're going to want to get the ball out quicker. So I just don't think Watson's going to have a very good game this week. And then this one might be a little bit of a surprise, but listen, Xavier Worthy, the Chiefs, they're playing the Chargers. The Chargers defense is pretty tough. I think we're going to get a heavy dose of Rashad Rice Rice in this game. Is it Rashad Rice, right? Rashee Rice in this game. I also think that between Gray and maybe Kelsey, we're going to see that. I potentially see the running backs having a little bit more role in here. Worthy couldn't get anything going last week when he got the ball. And so I just think he's going to struggle this week against this tough Chargers defense. I really do. I just don't, I could see Schuster Smith actually having a better game than Worthy this game because I could see Mahomes, looking at him because the other guys might not be open. So I think the Chargers are going to have a good game plan and they're going to shut him down. So
yeah, and then moving on into mine, Christian Kirk, I am still not sold on him. I know, he had his best week last week figures against me again, but Lawrence sucks. I'm just gonna say Lawrence is not good, and I just don't see Kirk having back-to-back good performances this year. Lawrence hasn't shown me anything to be like, wow, Kirk's gonna go off
well,
another
the
week.
Texans got embarrassed last week against the Vikings. They really didn't come into play. So
No, but I think
they're at
bounce
home
back.
against the Jags this week, and I think the Texans are going to be coming out fired up
Yep.
to bounce back from that embarrassing loss that they had.
But yeah, so I don't see Kirk doing anything here this week. I actually think Brian Thomas will end up being the guy in this offense. Like I've been saying it week in and week out. I expect Thomas to get the ball way more than Kirk here. Next up, and this is probably just more of a personal beef.
Now that he said that, though, Kirk's going to have a good game, so you should start him.
Next up, this is probably more so personal beef right now with this player, but Zamir White, I would say just sit because he cannot get anything going across the first three games. I get it; they've been playing behind in a few of them, but he's not looked impressive. He's not really doing anything to shine. He's not even utilizing the passing game really at all. So like right now, his value to me is way lower than what people value him. it just hasn't been impressive
I think
whatsoever.
he's going to have a bounce back game this week. Personally, I think Antonio Pierce is pissed off and he's going to go old school against the Browns and he's going to pound the ball and he's going to use Zamir White and that's what they're going to do.
I don't know. They played the worst defense in the league last week, and
I know, but Pierce was fired up. I'm telling you, Pierce is an old school guy, linebacker. I think he's gonna talk to his OC, and they're gonna be pounding the ball with White.
well, time will tell. But I just don't see it. But next up, Amari Cooper. Again, this might be a hot take here, but aside from the 2 touchdowns, it really wasn't like a crazy impressive week last week. Don't get me wrong, 2 touchdowns is great and all, but Deshaun Watson, I'm still not sold on here this year. I thought he was actually going to be good going into the year, but Watson's came out flat. I have no faith in really anyone on their offense right now succeeding until they figure things out on a consistent basis. To me, I think Amari Cooper's just a risk right now. I mean, I think a flex, you could probably get away with it, but I think there's better options out there.
Well, and the Raiders are coming off an embarrassing loss last week as well. So, and they're at home. They played really poorly in front of their home crowd and stuff last week. I think their defense is going to come fired. I think Crosby's going to get those guys fired up, and I think you're right. I think the Browns' offense is going to struggle.
Yeah, they look horrendous right now. Next up, Michael Pittman. I think he touched on that pretty well. I don't really have much else to say there. I don't think Richardson has a connection whatsoever with Pittman. I think it showed a little bit last year as well, but
I don't think that. I personally think the problem is that Richardson is when he gets panicked, pulls the ball down and he runs rather than move around in the pocket to find his receiver. And this is really his rookie year if you think about it.
yeah, but
So I think Pittman is too good not to get him the ball. I think they just need to coach up Richardson on, hey, listen, dude, you can't just keep pulling the ball down and running.
what they need to do is pull up some film on Jaden Daniels because those two are like identical in play style. And then lastly, Christian Watson. I just think he's going to struggle, and I agree with you. I think they're going to pound the ball. I don't think Love's going to be playing personally. I think it's going to be Willis. I actually almost went as far as putting Jaden Reed here due to the fact that whether or not we have faith in the defense yet so far, the Vikings defense has looked really good. And Gilmore only allowed 1 reception to Nico Collins last week, who leads the league in the NFL right now in yards. Um, the only reason I didn't put Reed there is because the Vikings mix it up a lot on defense, and a lot of the yards that Nico Collins got last week were not on Gilmore. So the Vikings don't always match up their top cornerback to the top receiver. They mix it up, and you get different looks every time from them. So I couldn't go as far as putting Reed on there this week.
And listen, whether you like him or not, I'm going to quote somebody. I saw an interview that he did. Bill Belichick hit it on the head, and this is why I'm not totally sold yet with the Vikings. Is their defense hasn't played from behind yet, so or their team hasn't played from behind. And like Belichick said, in order to find out, how good this team really is, we need to see what they're going to be like when they're playing from behind. It's really easy to be blitzing and doing all the stuff that Flores is doing right now when you're playing ahead. When you're playing from behind, you don't have the option of doing that. So is the Vikings defense going to still be able to do that kind of pressure and get that kind of pressure when they're playing from behind? That's why I'm not sold. I absolutely agree with Bill Belichick on this. I want to see, the Vikings are going to come into something, and this is going to be a prime example, Wiggs, they're going to come into a game like this where they might be playing from behind, and let's see how they react to that. So, anyways, not to get off on the
Oh
tangent.
no, that's
So,
all I really had to say. I was going back and forth between the two, but
yeah.
with how much they mix it up on defense, I think
I think Reed is more
safe.
explosive, so he's got more potential to actually hit something this week than Watson does. That's just my opinion. I just don't think Watson, since his injury, has been the same.
No,
And I don't know if he's still battling something, or maybe he's just not as good as everybody thought. I don't know. I mean, to come back from a hamstring injury like that, sometimes it takes you a half a season to get back into feeling comfortable to go full speed on it. So, but with that, anything else, Wiggs? Yeah, so check us out, Fantasy Fools PPR on YouTube. We're also out on Snapchat, X, TikTok, Instagram. Like, share, subscribe. If you got any questions or feedback, come to us. If you need lineup help, we're here to help. We just want to give you another option. And until next time, we'll see you soon.